Well, this is certainly a weird video coming off the heels of the Funk Mix ranking. I mean, first I cover a relatively well-known FNF mod, and now I'm covering a pretty much unknown Scratch project? What's up with that? Well, aside from the fact that was the second tier list I uploaded onto Pixelart, and I want to keep the general order of when I did them intact, I also just wanted to make this video because I thought it would be fun to work on. I guess I should explain what Boss Battle even is. Boss Battle is a Scratch game made by My Weirdest School, otherwise known as Explosive Discount, where two players fight against each other. One is the player character and one is the boss character, and player 1 has to defeat every boss in order to beat the game. It's currently in its third demo state, however, that doesn't mean there's nothing to talk about, quite the contrary. While my brother, Miles, otherwise known as Mr. Meman, will eventually be making a full review of the game, I will just be covering the OST. Speaking of which, there are 3 composers for Boss Battle. Chatterful, the person who composed the music for the first 2 demos, and his work is still in the current demo, before he got dropped off the face of the earth for being too lazy. David is Short, who joined the team for Demo 3.0 and composed music for a whopping 2 bosses before also being dropped off the face of the earth for being too lazy. And Mr. Meman, who's composed several songs for the OST, and yet his work still isn't in the current release build of the game. Wow, what a great lineup we have here. Aren't you guys excited to see how this list is going to play out? Jokes aside, all of these composers are clearly very early in their musical careers, and thus I will not be judging too harshly. Plus, I know of these people, if I start being mean, they'll probably disown me. However, I won't mince words on my opinions. I won't be mean, of course, but I will be honest. I'll try to mix in positive feedback and advice when I can, but I won't lie and say that these are absolute cinema, because they aren't. And they don't need to be. They just need to provide for an enjoyable listening experience. But is it an enjoyable listening experience? Let's find out! Firstly, I'd like to clarify that I'm covering Demo 3.0 in this video. While a revamp of Demo 1.0 came out more recently, 3.0 is the most finished build of the game so far, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. Though, if you want my opinion on the Shapeism remake, I don't like it all that much. Also, to make this video slightly more interesting, I wanted to invite someone to do the ranking with me. Someone who is very familiar with this OST. Someone who, in fact, provided the backbone of a good amount of these songs. Everyone, please welcome to the stage, Chatterful himself.
It's me, Chatterful, the guy Ilad spent a lot of time talking about. I figured I might as well respond to what Ilad was saying. Please keep in mind, this is in no way an argument against the points he's making, as I agree with most of them. This is simply to provide context. With that being said, let's get into the songs.
What the? How the? A perfect circle?
So, as I already stated, I'm going to be honest when I talk about this OST. Not brutally honest, but I'm not gonna give complaints when it's not something I agree with. With that being said, I don't think that this overall OST is very strong, or even that good. That mostly has to do with the inexperience of the then main composer, Chatterful, since this was only the second project he worked on, from what I know. And I won't blame him for how rough his contributions are. That being said though, due to his inexperience, a lot of his compositions will end up on the bottom half of this list, and Shapeism is no exception. It was very difficult figuring out between this one and the next one as for what I thought the weakest song was, but I settled on this one, and it mainly comes down to a problem that I don't even think is Chatterful's fault. Don't get me wrong, the composition itself is still pretty rough. A lot of Chatterful's works just in general have the issue of not being able to stick to a key. They go out of tune a lot, and it bogs down a composition that could have otherwise been passable. However, that isn't my big issue. If it was, I'd be ranking it higher. No, my main issue is the ear-bleeding, screechy electric guitar. For some reason, Beatbox, the program that Chatterful uses to make his music, has an actually abysmal guitar instrument that genuinely takes a month out of my lifespan every time I hear it. Again, that isn't Chatterful's fault. Can I blame him for putting an electric guitar into a bunch of his songs in an attempt to make them sound quote-unquote epic? Yes, I can. But this right here is Beatbox's fault, and I will forever hold that against it. My suggestion for if Chatterful made a Shapeism V2, find a key and stick with it, and please change the distortion and overdrive guitars to their FM or PWM variants. But that's just my opinion. What does Chatterful think?
I hate this song. Like, so much. Let me add a bit of context here. Demo 1 had just been released. I made a mod of Boss Battle using characters from the game I was working on at the time, Appleman. Explosive Discount liked the song I used and asked if I wanted to make music for the game. I said yes, mainly because my little brother was also working on the game. I excitedly got out Beatbox, got to work, and made my second least favorite song I've ever made. Honestly, I'm surprised it wasn't in G tier. The description for the video says it gets the job done, and that was a blatant lie. I hate this song.
Get a large two-topping Crazy Crust pizza for $6.99 from Little Caesars.
So, there is one very particular problem about this song that none of the other songs in the OST have. You see, for most of Chatterful's songs, he uses beatbox, as I already stated. For the main menu and 4/5 of the bosses, it's all beatbox. However, for the main event, he used a website called $30 Website, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a music-making program that only uses meme sounds and does not allow for multiple tracks to play at the same time, so it's infinitely more limiting. Hey, editing Dexter here. Apparently I'm a bit of a dumb stupid head because Chatterful did not use $30 Website for this song. Instead, he just used a mod of beatbox that had a lot of sounds that coincidentally were
I genuinely
shared
did
in
not know
$30
this
until Meeman told me he found the original project file. That's my bad. I could just rewrite the script for this, but I don't feel like getting rid of all that, so I'm not gonna. Anyways, back to the video. I'll say this much, Chatterful definitely tried his best. I just do not like the abomination of sounds that this website produces most of the time. This thing is just a mess. I am genuinely surprised that my brother was able to squeeze out a melody from this in his remix, which also isn't good, let's be totally honest, because when I listen to it, there is no melody to speak of. I'll say this though, the reason why I'm ranking this above Shapeism is because there aren't any parts that hurt me to listen to. It's just that I still don't like it in the slightest. My advice for if Chatterful were to make a main event V2, let's try using beatbox again and see where it goes from there. Wow, that was a lot of negativity. I'm starting to doubt whether that brutally honest comment was a lie or not. Let's try to switch things up then. What does Chatterful think about this song?
The main event was not actually made with a $30 music maker. I couldn't figure out how to get that to work. Instead, it was made with Ultrabox, a beatbox mod featuring two key sounds, the almond break sound and the earthbound guitar sound. The main instrument is actually the opening to Almond Break. This song was not created for Boss Battle, but was created for an early version of Picasso, the game I'm currently working on. Shameless Picasso plug. Picasso is an RPG I'm working on, and the main event was going to be the main battle theme. At the time, I did not have RPG Maker, so rather than have the song sit there and picking up dust, I put it in Boss Battle. It does not work there. I personally really like this song, but it does not fit Boss Battle at all. I can see why it was ranked so low.
You've been trolled. Clubbin' But At What Cost is fine enough for the most part. I think the main melody goes out of key, but it's not as big of an issue as I would have expected it to be. In fact, even the beatbox electric guitar isn't as big of an issue as it usually is, which is genuinely a shock since it sounds like actual crap 99% of the time. I also like the vibe of this song. It sounds less threatening than the others because of how dopey the troll boss is, though it doesn't sound too unthreatening as to not fit a boss. This first half of the song would probably scrape its way into C tier if it weren't for my issues with the song. You see, a lot of Chatterful songs have another glaring issue with them, and that's its repetition. Now, correct me if I'm wrong since I heard this from Meeman and not Chatterful himself, but from what I've heard, back when he was making these songs, Chatterful didn't know how looping worked, so he extended all of his songs to hell and back so that he could make it loop properly. This causes a bit of an issue when listening to them in the actual OST because they are all really long and they repeat a ton, which makes them a bit unpleasant to listen to. And then in the second half, once the new melodies do appear, guess what? They're out of tune. That's the only thing holding this song back from being decent though. If a Clubbin' But At What Cost V2 were made, I'd say shorten the runtime and add a little more variety in the melodies. Oh yeah, and also change the guitar again. I know it sounds fine here, but that's likely just a fluke, and I would not take any risks. That thing is a beast. But hey, don't take my word for it. Let's hear what Chatterful has to say.
This song is the most perfect, beautiful, and incredible thing I have ever created. I have literally no memory of making it. I just came to and the song was fully made. Also, I don't loop the songs. I get really lazy and I reuse the motifs to the point of utter absurdity.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live.
I can see the vision with the imperfections of flesh. This song is actually surprisingly decent for the most part. With what little Chatterful likely had to work with, he made the song feel dire, which works quite well for the boss itself. It doesn't quite feel as intense instrumentation-wise as the other bosses, but it really doesn't need to, since the atmosphere is already taking care of that intensity by itself. However, when it comes to my negatives, say it with me now, some of the melodies are out of tune. However, it's not as big of an issue as it is in Clubbin', and I can actually somewhat get behind it. But then around the 1 minute mark, another new melody appears, and it just doesn't feel natural with the rest of the song. Still though, a solid attempt was made, so I can't fault it for that. It's just those couple of mistakes that are holding me back from ranking it in C tier. If an Imperfections of Flesh V2 were made, I'd say you don't really need to change that much. Just fix the key issues and replace that other new melody with something else that fits more. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this song. Chatterful, take it away.
This song was made for boss battle. It's kind of a V2. I managed to make an entire song before deciding it didn't feel right, scrapping it, and coming up with the current version. Why is it off key? Because I know absolutely nothing about music theory. I personally find this song very fitting, and I reused it for a battle in Picasso with a similar feel. Also, I can play the song on the piano. I just wanted to point that out.
You ever dance
Me, sword fighter.
in the pale moonlight?
The Moonlit Swordsman is pretty close to actually being pretty solid. I really like the main melody. I think the slide notes are used really well, and once again, this is an electric guitar outlier where it actually sounds pretty good with the main melody. I think more could have been done with it, but I'm not complaining that it wasn't, because it still sounds good in this. However, this song isn't without its faults. I think that as soon as the piano appears, that's when the song starts to fall apart. I like the vision of having descending notes as the song hits its midway point, but I don't think that it meshes well with the rest of the song. And then there's the breakdown. This part is just a complete mess. I mean this as nicely as possible, but like, what happened here? Really, I want to know, why does it sound like this? Nearly none of the notes in this part are in tune, and it just doesn't fit with the entire rest of the song previously. This melody carries over for 40 seconds too, and is like the main melody, so it's quite noticeable too, which is a shame since I could see myself actually liking this song if not for that part. My advice for if there was a Moonlit Swordsman V2? Honestly, not a whole lot, just make the variations on the melodies fit better with the rest of the song. But that's just what I think. How about Chatterful?
This song was not actually made for boss battle. It was made for a game concept I had called Stop Playing the Game, where the only way to beat the game was to die a lot of times. This was the final boss song, where you would fight a GLaDOS-like enemy. The game was quickly scrapped, but the song was cool and ninja-y, so I used it for boss battle. Explosive Discount added the drums. Now to talk about the part ILAD doesn't like. There are certain songs that I intentionally make a little grating and off-putting. There's a song from Appleman called Hypothermia that is always ranked very low. That is an example of that. This part is one of them. The original song was supposed to have this feeling of terror and hopelessness, and I just never changed the melody because I'm really lazy. Also, it was the second song I ever created, and as a result, I just made it by clicking random notes until it sounded passable. That's why it's off key.
Where's the sunset?
I can very easily imagine Sunset being really, really good. The main melody is very catchy, even just by itself. It's very fitting for a main menu theme. And also, surprisingly, even though Chatterful himself said that he doesn't understand music theory in the slightest, and even though I can tell he isn't necessarily sticking to a key, everything just sort of works in this song. The backing track and the main melody honestly work well together, and the drums are alright. I do wish that after all that build up in the intro that something more interesting would have happened instead of just another instrument playing the main melody, but it's not that big of an issue. The first half of this song is honestly pretty good. But just like with the Moonlit Swordsman, the song kind of falls apart once more variation in the melodies starts happening. The first time it happens, it's honestly not too bad. Objectively, yeah, this new melody does not work well at all with the rest of the song, but personally, I don't mind it too much, and the song probably would have still been in B tier. But then right after that, it happens again, and this time, it's even more distracting. This second new melody tanks the rest of the song, in all honesty, because even if I could look past it in the same way I did for the previous one, it drags on a lot longer than it needs to, and it even plays over the main melody that I liked. I won't put the blame on Chatterful though, since from what he says, it was Explosive Discount who recommended that he add variations on the melodies, and Chatterful's original plan was that it would be just the one. But the full song does get dragged down because of the decision. If a Sunset V2 were made, again, not a whole lot would need to be changed. I really like most of Sunset, just fix the walking key melodies and it's all good. But that's just what I think. What about Chatterful?
Ah yes, now to describe my ringtone. This song was originally made for Appleman, and it was supposed to be a boss song, one that would have similar vibes to Credit Song for My Death by VVVVV. Once I started making it, however, it became very clear that it would be taking a very different tone. I was very proud of this song, but I couldn't find a place to put it in Appleman. So I sent it to Discount and told him it could be the menu theme. The variations in melody come from Discount requesting less repetition in songs, and unfortunately, I didn't do too well. This is a song I may actually make a V2 of.
I'm the trash man. I come out, I throw trash all over the ring.
Garbage Truck, despite the name, is good, actually. I like it. Not a lot, but I like it. I think that the guitar is used pretty good. It builds an atmosphere. It feels desolate. And while that doesn't really fit a boss necessarily, it does fit the vibe of the area pretty well. And also, the synth is used pretty well too. The melodies are pretty good, and this time when the variation starts happening, it does sound really good, and is probably my favorite part of the song. But with that being said, this song isn't without its faults. This time, it doesn't even really have that much to do with the song itself. I brought it up earlier, but I just want to really point out here that this song really does not sound like a boss fight at all. Yeah, it's good, but it doesn't really fit with how you'll be fighting this massive imposing threat that this garbage truck is. If a garbage truck V2 were made, I don't want to say that it should be replaced entirely since I like the atmosphere and the motifs, but maybe it should be reworked to fit the energy a bit more, if that makes sense. You know, this is usually the part where the composer would chime in and give a little insight into the making of the song and stuff, but I don't really know how to contact David, so I'm just sticking to asking Chatterful for his opinions. What does he think of the song?
And now we're getting to songs I didn't make, but I did work on them at an early point in the game before being replaced. I actually did make a song for this one, or rather repurposed a song from Appleman. I made it a song that I hated with a burning passion. Remember how I said Shapeism was my second least favorite song? This one was my least favorite. It just sounded awful. I figured since the boss was a little garbage truck, having a trashy song would work perfectly. Boo! Interestingly, the guy that took over took a different approach and made an actually decent song. I actually like it a lot. It just fills me with this feeling of despair? Disgust? It gets the job done very well.
And now, we're finally at the #1 spot. I sure wonder who composed the best song of this OST. It wasn't me, man. And to nobody's shock, Boss Battle's best song is Clone 2.0. Yeah, this one's just really good. The atmosphere's really good and fitting against a doppelganger enemy, the melodies are very catchy, the percussion's really good. All around, this song just does earn being my #1 spot. I like it quite a lot. I was considering putting this one in A tier, however, upon re-listens, there is a bit of a glaring problem that hinders it a little, and that is the timing of the main melody. The synth just sounds the slightest bit out of sync with the percussion. It's not that noticeable during gameplay, but when you're listening to the song by itself, you really do start to notice it. And once you do notice it, you can't unnotice it. And it does hinder a song that otherwise wouldn't really have any problems. If a Clone 2.0 were made, All that would really need to be done to it would be that the main melody would need to be retimed. Otherwise, great song, not much more I can say. And now, for the final time in this video, let's see what our guest star has to say about this song. Take it away, Chatterful.
This is probably my favorite song in the soundtrack. It's just really good. It's got a good main melody, a good supporting melody, and it really isn't off-key. However, there's something about the timing that just seems off. Maybe it's just me, but there's this split second in between each note that really bothers me. Otherwise, it's a pretty good song, and I remember playing this boss for the first time and being amazed by the song. Oh, I forgot to mention what I was going to do before I got fired. Discount wanted Sunset to be the theme of the player, so I decided to make a boss version of Sunset. It was not good. It wasn't bad, but it just didn't sound bossy enough. Does that make any sense? Anyways, I'm glad it was replaced by this. This sounds much better.
And that's a wrap. Yeah, this OST could definitely use some work in future updates, but I don't doubt that it can get better, both with the newer composers on the team and the older composers trying to get better with their work. Here's my tier list. And here's Chatterful's tier list. I'll say this much, I don't think this is a bad start. In fact, I think it has a lot of potential. It just also has a lot of room to grow. Being perfectly honest, I didn't cover Boss Battle because I think it's really good like I did with Funk Mix, because a lot of this OST from an objective musical standpoint is not good. But I see it for what it is. This whole thing reminds me of when I was really little and I wanted to do my own big project. I had a lot of ambition and imagination, even if what I ended up making wasn't all that good. Because of that, this OST has become some sort of comfort music for me. Sometimes I just feel like coming back to it, even if my opinions won't really change for the better. I enjoy it for its immaturity, and I think it's something special that not a lot of things can capture for me. Well, that's really all I've got today. See you all next time. Goodbye!